Hi, my name's Dr. DocLeBrocq, and welcome to episode 1 from my groundbreaking mini-series, Practical Life Hacks for Women Living with an Ostomy. Today, we're going to be talking about my top tips for accepting your new normal. Let's talk about a couple of truths for a moment. One of those is that you don't have to love your stoma to accept the fact that you have one. Acceptance means that you've let go of resentment and anger and you've started to move forward with your life after surgery. Another truth, you're probably feeling overwhelmed by all of this. So take it slow. Try to learn more about this new lifestyle at your own pace. The truth that I am referring to is the realization that the ostomy you have, or the one you may be getting, is intended to either save your life or improve your quality of life, or maybe both. Once you've acknowledged that truth, you have a few options. 1, you can be resentful, angry, embarrassed, ashamed, overwhelmed, disappointed, and carry the burden of those feelings for a long time. You can be resentful, angry, embarrassed, ashamed, overwhelmed, disappointed, and carry the burden of those feelings for a short time. Or, number 3, you can be relieved, hopeful, grateful, motivated, unashamed, optimistic, and let those feelings carve a path to your future. Or, number 4, you can have a mixture of both positive and negative feelings. We find, though, that the negative feelings will often drag down the positive ones. Most people don't know this about me, but I hit rock bottom a number of times during my illness, and I struggled to understand and make sense of my pain and suffering. Life did not seem fair, and I felt betrayed by the body that housed me. What did I do wrong, and why me? I'm telling you this because I believe now that life is never too much for us to handle, although I know from the pit of my stomach, that expression, listen to your gut, that there were many times when I and we can truly feel that way. So I'm going to highlight the 6 top tips that I use to accepting my new normal to help you to get the healing and the peace of mind you deserve. My name is Dr. DocLeBrocq at www.DocLeBrocq.com. That's spelled DocLeBrocq, DocLeBrocq.com. I'm a psychotherapist and I have been working in the mental health field for over 20 years. You can find this episode on www.DocLeBrocq.com/life hacks episode 1. Life Hacks Episode 1. I teach female ostomates to reclaim their body, their mind, and sexuality using proven tools to heal past their pain and step into their personal power. My superpower is my story. I'm an example of what's possible for you by turning my medical trauma, my ileostomy, my coma, into the empowerment that I used to pursue my dreams. I used my story to achieve my highest calling, which was a PhD, and ultimately I used my suffering to teach others. I go before you with my personal journey of survival. By virtue of being a patient in the medical trenches, by making mistakes, shedding tears, and experiencing incredible wins, I will guide you to develop a loving and healthy relationship with yourself that will lead to personal renewal through inner transformation. Today we're talking about acceptance, and I have organized some top tips to help you manage your feelings around your ostomy and how to learn to accept it. There's a lot of information that I'll cover today, so I've prepared a quick check sheet or handout for you to keep as a way of acting like a bit of a checklist if you're struggling. This is available to download for free at www.DocLeBrocq.com/life hacks episode 1. When most people hit rock bottom, they get stuck. They tell themselves they aren't worthy or even capable of being loved, admired, or valued. Can you relate? Well, that's pretty normal and honestly pretty common. The best thing you can do in that case is to dump all of the negative thoughts that are racing around in your mind and fill your cup with positive thoughts. Easier said than done, I know. That's why I've recorded a step-by-step guided meditation to lead your thoughts to a higher place. Be ready to not only experience higher levels of positivity during the day, but as well as a level of acceptance for your ostomy that you didn't know existed. Download it right now. It's free at www.doclebroc.com/life-hacks episode 1. Top tips for acceptance number 1. When we accept our new reality, we begin to heal from trauma. Letting go of resentment. During and experiencing trauma, and certainly after we've experienced trauma, it's common to go into survival mode and not have the energy to wrap your head around what's happened. It may feel safest to bury painful feelings and avoid confronting them. But acknowledging what happened and how it has impacted you is an important part of healing. When you feel ready, take the time to think about how you've been affected and be proud of yourself for pushing through. There's no set time limit on how you should heal. Remove the pressure of needing to bounce back quickly and focus on taking it one step at a time. Remember, recovery isn't linear, and it's normal to have bad days and setbacks. It doesn't mean you're failing, it's just a part of the process. Dealing with trauma and stress is no easy feat, but it's still common to get frustrated with yourself when sometimes things can be a little bit slow in the recovery process. Try to catch when you hold yourself to these unreasonable standards instead of angrily asking yourself, why am I acting like this? Think about how impressive it is that you keep going despite what you faced. My rule of thumb is that we need to give ourselves some grace. We need to speak to ourselves as we would speak to others. Hear yourself, catch yourself, and change the message. Top tips for acceptance number 2. In order to move forward, we must first acknowledge what has happened. Stop fighting the truth. First step in accepting reality is gaining awareness that you're resisting it. It may seem like this would be an easy thing to spot, but there are actually a lot of subtle ways that people push against reality. If you're feeling bitter or resentful, wishing things were different, or thinking about how life isn't fair, you might be fighting reality. Remind yourself that you can't change what has already happened. Before you can make peace with reality, though, you do have to acknowledge that there's no going back to the way things were. Doing this, I know, can be challenging and painful, but by identifying what you can and cannot control, you turn your energy towards coping with the things that you can change and the things that you can't. My rule of thumb is to remember that you can't change what has already happened. Accepting your new normal is key to figuring out the only way to move forward. Top tips for acceptance number 3. Take back your power. Focus on what you can control, not what you can't. Embrace your feelings. You might still be angry, scared, overwhelmed, or lonely. That's okay. Accepting reality includes everything that you're feeling. When you accept these feelings and you let yourself experience them without any judgment, you can work through them in a healthy way. You can actually pretend that you're accepting reality, even if you're struggling to fully accept it. Maybe think about what it would look like if you did accept it. How would you act if you simply accepted things the way they were? What would your next step be? Changing your behavior and actions to reflect pretend acceptance can actually help you to shift your thoughts. In therapy, we call this acting as if. So focus on what you can control. One of the hardest things about big change is how helpless it can feel when you struggle with the things that you can't accept. At some point, you'll probably have to accept the change that you're experiencing and then focus on what you can control within that. For example, you can control how you react to situations, how you start each day, or how nice you are to yourself and others. It can be comforting to know that there are still things that you have control over, even when other things are changing. My rule of thumb is to remember that you can't change what has already happened. Pretend if that is what you need to do to get through the day. Speak your truth and acknowledge that this is inevitable. Now, don't worry about all the information I'm giving you today. You don't have to memorize it. To make it easier for you, I've prepared a handout that you can kind of use as a checklist if you're struggling. That's available for free at www.doclebroc.com/lifehacks episode 1. I've also recorded a step-by-step body-based meditation to lead your thoughts to a higher place. You can get this free at www.doclebroc.com/lifehacks episode 1. That's spelled DocLeBrocq, DocLeBrocq.com/lifehacks HACKS episode 1. Now, top tips for acceptance number 4. Once we accept our new reality and begin to live again, we can start to rebuild our life. Remember that you are running your own race. Try not to compare your life and what it looks like right now to anyone else's. When you start comparing yourself to others, it's easy to feel inadequate, which makes it hard to even take the very first step in self-care. Instead, try and do your best to accept the person that you are and where you are in life right now. Sometimes being a human is not easy, and it can feel impossible to get even the littlest things done. Taking time for yourself doesn't necessarily mean treating yourself to big or special things. One of the most important things you can do is focus on steps to ensure you're living a healthy life. For example, showering and brushing your teeth, eating nutrient-rich food, moving your body, getting good sleep. They're all building blocks of good self-care. Make small goals. Unfortunately, taking time for yourself doesn't just happen overnight. So try to be patient. Instead of putting pressure on yourself to immediately have the perfect self-care routine, set small goals that you want to accomplish for yourself. Focus on small daily tasks like wanting to take a 15-minute walk, journaling for 10 minutes, rather than imagining this complete overhaul of your life all at once. My rule of thumb is to find what makes you happy. If you're caught up in taking care of all of your responsibilities rather than taking care of yourself, you may not even know what kind of self-care you need. What works for you may not work for somebody else. Let's take a look at top tips for acceptance number 5. By accepting our new reality, we can begin to heal. One of my favorites is practicing radical acceptance daily. So, radical acceptance is a great tool to cope with hard situations that we can't control, but it can take a while before it comes easily. Don't get down on yourself if you don't master it immediately. Start by trying it out in smaller situations, like when you're stuck in traffic or your internet is acting up during a Zoom call. By practicing radical acceptance on a daily basis, it will be easier to use as a coping tool when bigger, tougher challenges come your way. Keeping your feelings bottled up really never works. So allow yourself time to be angry and complain. Within reason, right? As long as you don't focus on it for too long, venting can be a healthy outlet for your anger. You can open up to a trusted friend or write it down in a journal. My rule of thumb is that sometimes it feels better to pretend to talk directly to the person or the situation that you're angry at. So I encourage my clients to pick an empty chair, pretend that they're sitting opposite it, and say what you need to get it off your chest. Talk to that empty chair. Talk to your body. Talk to your stoma. Say exactly what you need it to hear. And finally, top tips for acceptance number 6. Use coping statements. These are sentences that remind you that different, healthier ways of thinking are possible. Repeating them can help you get through difficult moments. You can focus on just one or make a whole long list of your own. Some examples are, it is what it is. I can't change what has already happened. I can accept things the way that they are. I can only control my own actions and reactions. My rule of thumb is writing your coping statements on a post-it note and putting them in a place where you'll see them multiple times a day, or set an alarm. Create an event on your phone with a coping statement to pop up as a reminder every now and then. My raggedy old sticky note here says, think like a survivalist. This is one of my favorite coping statements. Be kind to yourself. Radical acceptance takes time. Listen to my step-by-step guided meditation to lead your thoughts to a higher place. And be ready to not only experience higher levels of positivity during the day, as well as a level of acceptance for your ostomy that you didn't know existed. So download it right now. It's free at www.DocLeBrocq.com/lifehack episode 1. Again, my name is Dr. Susie LeBrocq, or DocLeBrocq, from www.DocLeBrocq.com, and that's spelled DocLeBrocq.com. I'm a psychotherapist and I've been working in the mental health field for over 20 years. You can find this episode at www.DocLeBrocq.com/lifehacks episode 1.